Welcome to Coffee Time Again, Exposing the Truth. Dale at the microphone, the show that shows how history is repeating itself. I go back in the past to show what happened and what is going on now. Most of the time, I'm not talking about the headlines of the day, though I will if it is important. The culture that forgets its history has no future. A history buff and love to talk about. I'm a constitutional conservative and a devout Christian. I follow the path in history to where it goes and relate it today to reveal the connections. I've gone back to the Greeks and the Egyptians and as early as 2010. So grab your coffee, chair, and listen to the show. Today's guest is Martin Theis, a spiritual leader. I help my students and the people around me through presence in combination with my somatic education. I'm a conversation partner, which is very adaptable to the content as well as the host. I can match any style, yet also step into the antagonistic roles. So, Martin, welcome to the show. Glad to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It's nice to be here.
So, how's the weather in Hawaii?
Oh, it's beautiful in the morning usually. I live on the west side of the Big Island or Hawaii Island, and we have some rains usually in the afternoons, but now it's really nice and sunny.
Yeah, we're supposed to get snow here today, up to about 3 inches between now and tomorrow morning. So,
Yeah,
the sunshine and rain. You don't have to shovel rain.
that's different, different weather, and it's interesting because I usually don't even think about it. It's my first winter here. Usually, I've been here on the kind of arrived in February, so the weather got matching more towards summer, right? And so this is unusual for me that when I talk to friends that they say, well, it's really cold and it's snowing like you said today. So that's a new experience for me.
New experience for you. Well, I'm glad to give it to you anyway. So tell me a little bit about yourself and how'd you get your shamanic education, or did you just learn it through yourself?
No, I really stumbled into that. That was a coincidence in that sense that my best friend attended a workshop to kind of like a basic shamanic journey workshop where people would find their totem animals and just got introduced to the whole concept of shamanic journeys. And he talked to me about it afterwards, and I was really interested, and I started with that. And that was how I got into this branch of shamanism.
Okay. So a friend introduced you and you got to where you liked, what's a totem animal?
Yeah, so a totem animal or spirit animal is our potential, showing up in animal form. That's at least my experience and the way I was taught it. There's maybe different nuances in this understanding, but the way I see it is we see these animals that show up in these shamanic journeys, and they are a part of ourselves showing up in animal form. So we get to learn about ourselves when we look at the animal, when we see its needs, when we see how it interacts with other animals, with maybe how it hunts, how it sleeps, all these information we can decode or decipher and work with that because it applies to ourselves. Me, for example, one of my totems is a panther or a black leopard, and so I often see parallels and have been struggling with naps in the afternoon, just a really small detail. So I was under the impression that I needed to be awake and I needed to be productive all day. And then I looked at, well, how is my totem animal showing up, and cats usually sleep a lot. So I started to implement these naps, and that's much more in line with my energy, and I'm much more productive now, that when I feel the need to take a nap, that I don't fight it, but I just take a nap, 10 minutes, and then I get up again and do stuff,
Yeah, because I take naps myself most often in the afternoon for that, because I am more productive, and once I get a nap and I wake up and I'm refreshed, I feel better.
Yeah.
I don't know about my totem animal, but I do know that in fact, as I took one earlier this morning, I'm not feeling well. So I took one this morning. Now I feel good.
Yeah, and it doesn't, there's something general like naps is maybe applicable to almost anybody, right? Power naps are proven to be kind of like increasing productivity in the afternoon or something.
Yeah.
But when it comes to just behaviors to look at what is the hunting behaviors, what is the mating behaviors, what how do they, is it is it kind of like a pack animal, or is it a more solitary animal? All these things, you know, it's a little bit like a zodiac sign,
Yeah,
just that we feel for the resonance, what is important and what do I need right now.
right. How does my Christianity jive with your shamanistic philosophy? Is there any conflict there, or is there harmony between the two?
Yeah.
Not just specifically
um
my brand of Christianity, but anybody's
yeah.
Christianity. The harmony there?
I don't know how. I would say this is a difficult question in a sense that what are we looking at, right? So if
Yeah.
we're looking at the Christianization and the boarding schools in the United States and that the way the indigenous people got led into that kind of Christianity, I would argue there's probably a different picture to that. But at least for me, having a connection with the earth and with nature and with animals, and kind of like like if we look at what is Christianity pointing towards, that we're all children of God, that we're brothers and sisters, and to treat each other well, you know, looking at the commandments, I
Mm.
would say there is no conflict in that, that if we are living a spiritual life, it doesn't matter what kind of container we use, you know, as
Oh,
long
okay.
as it's leading us towards that, being being kind to each other and promoting love, you know.
Hmm. I like the way you said that. That's very good because I tend to agree with you that Christianity over the centuries and millenniums has been a very bloody history in converting people,
Yeah.
trying to convert people and forcing them into Catholicism or Protestantism or whatever branch of religion they had. This particular branch happens to be, and I agree that that was nasty. But today, I hope that we're not doing that. I hope that we're promote. I know the church I go to is promoting friendship and love and happiness and treat. We just did a whole series of studies on climate change, which totally changed my mind on climate change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and now we're doing one on the environment too, as well, the general environment, not just climate change and the
Yeah. So
economy so that's good news. I'm glad to hear you think that way, Martin.
yeah. So what would you say is was one of the things that changed your mind, or enlightened you in that sense, or gave you an insight into, like when you said that series on climate change, what was most interesting to you?
The most interesting thing was the amount of change there has been. It's so, I think he said it was 1 degree a year. I can't remember exactly what the presenter said, but the main thing that I found was the whole series. But the main thing I found that was really important to me is the way he presented it.
Mm-hmm.
Linear, which is the way I understand, way I learned is linear progression of the facts.
Mm-hmm.
He was so believable that I totally did a 180-degree change in my thinking. So now I'm supporting what we need to do. I still don't believe that it's all man-made.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that part yet. I haven't got to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
However, it is caused by man, a lot of it. Although there's some natural things going on Earth. We've had ice ages, we've had heat waves, we've had it all through the millennium and eons that we've been a planet. And so I don't believe it's all man, but I could see what man's footprint in there now. I can see it. It's
Mm-hmm.
so huge that we're going to have to do something, and we're going to have to do it real quick, or we're going to have some real problems with our ecology.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing.
And the amount of pollution that's put out by automobiles is just I don't remember. I've got the number somewhere written down because I'm doing a podcast on it. I'm going to do an audio podcast on it as soon
Mm-hmm.
as I finish writing it. Because I got to rewrite though. I almost had it done. I had to throw that one away and start over with my new beliefs. But I think that's being a part of a human being a part of being not just a shaman, but being a Christian as well, is being able to look at things and change our mind and being able to say, hey, I'm wrong, they're right. And I think that's an important part of it. My roommate's that way. He's able to
Okay.
say, hey, I made a mistake and I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean that's an important quality, right? To be able to say, well, I made a mistake. I'm sorry for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm glad that he's able to do that. I obviously am able to say it because when you get faced with the facts, it's very difficult to say no, you're wrong when you know what they're saying is based on science. And I mean real science, not some of the pseudoscience that they're putting out there now, especially on the ultra right about climate change and everything else.
Yeah, it's propaganda, like propaganda on both sides, right? So I feel it is important to stick to the facts, but on the other hand, truth is just a concept of how we want to see it, right? So
Right.
how do I want to perceive what I'm reading? So it is difficult to kind of speak of one truth in that sense.
I think we all, I think along the lines as you do, I think we create our own truth in our own mind, like you were saying, just that we tend to say, well, that's truth, that isn't, when in fact it's probably somewhere in the middle
Yeah,
that is more accurate than what,
yeah,
I was a drug and alcohol counselor, and I used to tell my clients that if you got four people standing on a street corner and there's an accident in the center, who's seen what happened? Well, they all saw it, but they all seen it from different angles, so they have different truths,
yeah,
which is the reason I have trouble with eyewitness reports, because they, there's probably something, and two drivers seen it another way. So you got six people there that have various views of points of view, and they're all right.
yeah,
That's truth.
yeah, yeah.
You have to figure that part out, and that's difficult to come up with. Is what point of view, what do I need to adapt from that point of view to this point of view so I can see concisely what happened.
Yeah.
So
I would just presume that the commonality or the agreed upon things that all people would say there has been an accident, right? So
right,
everybody saw an accident. So
the accident. That's
the way it happened might differ, but
yeah,
everybody agrees on, okay, an accident happened.
right, right. But when they get into defining it, well, I saw this, I saw
Yeah.
it can be confusing. But
Yeah.
you're right. They did see the accident. All six of them saw it. They all got that commonality or truth in them now. So that's that commonality, that bond, which we need to look at as humans is a common. What do we have in common? Instead of what is. What I'm trying to say here. We have to look at what we have in common as opposed to what we have in our differences. I think we go a long way to bringing the people together.
Yeah. And it is a perspective change. Like you mentioned, it is about perspective, right? And
Yes.
so rather than focusing on what is not in line with what I want, or what I want to see in that person, what am I grateful for? What is something that I really appreciate? How can I see the positive aspects? And it's not about just ignoring something when it's about, like, when I'm affected in a negative way. It is also about expressing, this hurts me, or this is how I feel when you say that. But on the other hand, to not take it personally, right? And to say, well, this person is still somebody I really appreciate, love, and enjoy to be with. Not just, I just don't appreciate the way you're speaking about that person or something like that. So I think it's a great way to communicate with each other,
I
and to
agree.
learn to do it in a more positive way.
Well, I believe that our emotions are real. We're entitled to them, and we they can't hurt us without us giving them permission. That's what I believe. So if you say something that offends me, it's me who's becoming offended.
Mm-hmm.
It's my choice. I
Yeah.
can choose to be offended, or I can choose to say, okay, this gentleman said something that can be interpreted this way, but I don't have to accept it.
Yeah.
And that's what I believe. And it works very well for me. I rarely have anything that would even, I don't think emotions have negative or positive connotations. I think emotions are, by our reactions, what cause them to be negative or positive, even though we can't feel emotional pain from various people or situations or whatever. So I agree. I agree with you in that respect. It's one of the other questions you have down here is what is your vision and why do you intend to create a sanctuary in Hawaii?
Hmm.
Hawaii now you're a permanent home, or are you going back to I was going to say France, but I don't think that's where you went.
No, I when we talked last, I was in Germany.
Germany, that's what it was. I knew it was
Yeah.
over there in Europe. But it's now you're going to stay in Hawaii, or you're going to continue with your commute between the two countries?
So I will have to go back sooner than later. I thought I'd be a year longer, but I might go back in for 4 or 5 weeks. And this will probably will take a while, you know. So the sanctuary and the question that is that you mentioned is what is there? Why is it important for me? And I feel we are, and this maybe um, just is in line with what we spoke about climate change and all its implications. That I have the feeling that right now there is a need for people to find a place where they can heal, you know, where they can let go of past trauma, where they can just work through that in order to become more loving. And I think when we have these unresolved issues, it's really difficult because we get triggered so much, right? And so in order, I see these sanctuaries and a network of sanctuaries and refuges as a part to solve the climate and socioeconomic problems that we have, because people are just not able to choose different than they are choosing right now, because all these kind of like internal things are coming up and it's just like difficult, and I decide to drink alcohol rather than to deal with my problems, just as one example, you know. And so these places are one thing that I think will help us as humans to overcome some of the problems, because we need a mindset change. We need to evolve out of that mode that we have been for a long time, you know, to just ignore and consume and not work with our issues and kind of like just pass it on and be angry and hateful and all that. It may be a utopian point of view, but I really am convinced, because I've seen the difference in myself and others who've done the work with me, that it is possible to change, you know, but we need places for that. And currently these transformative places are very expensive, in a sense that you have to have a lot of money in order to be able to pay for retreats or hire a coach or something. That is, at least in my point of view, I see there's a lot of a need for that, but it is expensive, you know. And I think there is a need for places like that, where people with, no matter how thick their wallet is, how much money they have, they can go there and they can find that help, you know. And so one of these places for me is at least here in establishing a place like that. But as I mentioned, this will take a little bit of time, you know,
Yeah,
because I need funds. I need to find people who share that vision,
mhm.
and all that is kind of like it's my 20-year commitment that I made a couple of years ago, where I say, well, I will invest 20 years of my time in bringing this about, and I will give everything that I have and everything that I can. And if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't, you know. I don't know what's happening in 15 years on this planet. Nobody knows.
I don't even know what's going to happen in the next hour, let alone
Yeah.
15 years from now. As a drug and alcohol counselor, And as a recovered alcoholic for 33 years, I know exactly what you're talking about. To hide behind the addiction or whatever you're going to use, whether
Yeah.
it's chemical addiction or food or whatever, or just stuff it and not deal with it, let it come out sideways as passive aggressive behavior.
Mm-hmm.
They are expensive to find ways to get around that, to work through them. I got super lucky and had the benefit of some incredibly good therapists over the years. And that's the reason I'm where I'm at today. I'm retired, I'm enjoying life. Uh, I'm looking at things differently than I did in my 40s when I quit drinking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I'm a completely different person. I mean, you go to an AA meeting and say you never recovered. You're always in recovery. I think it's a bunch of malarkey. I think that keeps you stuck in the disease,
Mm-hmm.
which is the reason I say I'm a recovered alcoholic as
Yeah.
opposed. And it gets me in trouble sometimes with a bunch of hardcore AA people, but I don't care. It says in the old literature that we are recovered. We are more than BOW says in the big book. So that's the way I feel a lot about it. The same way about it as you do in a lot of respects there, because it works. And you get the
Mm-hmm.
sanctuaries, you get, especially if you get a series of them, or I forgot how you phrased it, but a bunch of them located throughout the world, and not
Yeah.
just USA, but the world.
Yeah.
Whole world's in trouble. We need, in my opinion, there's a lot of things that need to be done, and we got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
If we start in Hawaii, that's good. I am not a believer in the United Nations is going to do anything for world peace, or world hunger, or poverty, or disease. The United Nations just is. I've got a podcast coming up on that as soon as I finish writing that one on the same thing, on the corruption and the problems with the United Nations. So that's not going to happen. It's going to have to be every good event that happens starts at the grassroots. One person or two people start something, and it just gradually and sometimes rapidly expands into something that can be a greater good for everyone. So I pray that you get that. You getting any support now for your sanctuary?
Right now, that's a good question. There's a property here that is, I don't know why, but it's still there and it's supposed to be developed. You know, it's a big property. It's, I think, 300 acres, and I've been praying that this will be on hold. You know, that once the funds are there, that I can approach the owner and just introduce them to, or her, to my plan, and ask to be sold the land. You know, but right now, for in terms of the sanctuary, there's probably just people, like, if somebody's interested, they can reach out to me and we can
Yeah,
start building a community. But in terms of material creation, uh, there's still quite some things that need to be done on
yeah,
a money level. You know, that's
yeah,
been a difficult way to say that, but there's just funds, and people is probably the most important thing. To gather a community who are interested in building these kind of sanctuaries. And as you mentioned, it is about a network, right? So I always saw it in a way that um, either there are so many, because I have invested so much time already in this and spoken of this so much. I hear that there is a lot of people who have similar plans, right? So I'm not the only person who has an idea like this, and
no,
I feel that it is about teaching people how to do it. Like you said, it is about a network, and a lot of these places, I mean, one sanctuary in one state of the United States won't change a lot, you know.
no,
But if there's people who say, well, I want to do that, I know a property maybe in Albania or whoever and wherever they want to do it, Portugal, Spain, and they just want to do it, and they have the community, they just don't know how to do it, you know, to share the wisdom, to share the knowledge. How is it done? What do you need to think about? What have we done? What works? What doesn't? And then to just share that knowledge and help others and help each other to grow these
Hmm.
kind of incubators or transformation centers and as a refuge or sanctuary, as I mentioned them.
Well, near the end of the show, I'm going to give you an opportunity to give out a web address where they can get a hold of you. I will also put it in my show notes when I publish the show
Mm-hmm.
so that they can
Th-
get a hold of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's important because I have to, you know, I don't care what path you take. To me, it doesn't make any difference. When you take the path I'm following, the path you're following, we're all going to the same place eventually.
Yeah.
As long as we're good to each other and peaceful and kind to other people, I think we'll get to the journey's end comfortably at some point, and we're all going to the same place. So I support you in your endeavors,
Thank you.
and I will get, like I say, I'll put that in my show notes, and also at the end of the show, I'll give you the opportunity to give out the web address as well,
Yeah.
because I think it's important that that you get the word out, get people
Yeah.
interested, get people
Yeah.
hearing your message, because I think it's an important message. So again, I don't understand this. What do you mean by circular economy?
Oh yeah. So the circular economy model is based upon looking at, like, I'm not economy kind of like professor, so bear with me, but in my mind, when we look at capitalism and how usually if you own a business, you have certain indicators that tell you if your business is doing well or not, right? You have these
Mhm.
indicators. And so circular economy is looking at more than just revenue, in that sense that we're looking at communities and the environment, that we have a bunch of range of indicators to see whether our business is doing well or not, in that sense that money is feedback or given back to, if we produce something, the place of origin, for example, like the farmers who farmed the produce usually get the smallest amount of money for what they did, right? And then with further increase of production and refinement and everything, the revenue gets larger. And so what would happen is that the farmer would get some money also in shares for that increased revenue, and that the environment would be kind of like there would be incentives to do it in a way that the environment is regenerated rather than depleted. And so circular economy is just a way of letting everyone who's involved in that supply or value chain benefit from that overall revenue, right?
Okay.
So it's
Well,
not
more,
only given to the shareholders of the final kind of like piece in this
yeah.
chain, but to everyone.
Yeah, the shareholders of the grocery store that sells the tomato that costs 5 times what it should.
Yeah, kind of just,
Okay.
it's
Kind
just
of like
a
some,
sharing model,
yeah. It kind of is it. Could you relate it to, or could you, or would you, able to, as bartering, as opposed to the uh, uh, capitalism, but bartering? I'll give you this if you have this, or I'll pay this much for it, or is that anything that fits in there? I'm not sure if it does. I don't think it does from the way you explained it.
I think that exchange and that is a different system, though. We
Yeah.
still use money in circular economy as a transaction tool, right? Or as a way of exchanging the energy. But it's just like how will all the people participate and benefit from revenue and from the increase in value, rather than just a small amount of people.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So that's how you support the local community and your sanctuary is through circular economy, with everybody getting a bigger piece of the pie.
Yeah, so the idea behind the sanctuary was always to, because here in Kona, where I actually live right now, there's a lot of coffee which has been grown, coffee and macadamia nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea was to harvest and roast and sell the coffee, and to do that in a way that the community here benefits, like the sanctuary would benefit from that, but also giving it to environmental protection, ocean protection, fish regeneration, everything kind of like the whole environment would benefit from that. And the people, the social aspect, that the people who come to the sanctuary don't have to pay that which it would cost normally, right? So we have kind of like a donation or something coming in from the economy of the business is helping to reduce the cost of living and of being at this place. So that was the idea behind it, to just use a circular economy model to supplement the sanctuary.
Okay. I can see what you're saying. I think it's a good idea, actually. I'm a capitalist to begin with. However, I'm able to see it. Maybe something else would the circular think, well, what the heck happened to you? There we go. I somehow hit the wrong button. What would you say to your 25-year-old self?
In general, just if I could
One of the
speak with
questions here is what if you could speak to your 24-year-old self, what advice would you have for him?
You know, I love this question. It's just depending on the time of the day
Yeah.
and what I'm currently going through. It's it's a little bit different, but I think it is, take your time, you know, like don't feel you need to rush. Like for me, for example, I feel pressured sometimes that I need to be faster, I need to do certain things quicker, I need to have more success, or I need to, like in my business, I need to do more things. I only got 5 steps and 5 steps done, and I intended to do 10. So take your time, you know, rather than rushing through life. Be present with the things you do, enjoy the things you do, and if you don't enjoy things, find a way to enjoy them, outsource them, or, like, you know, just going at it in a completely different way. And I would say taking time and slowing down is one important aspect of life, in order, because we rush by so many things, you know. If I walk slower, I get the chance to look left and right. Or if I drive in a car and I'm driving really fast, I need to focus so much on the street, and I need to really take so much energy being attentive towards what's happening. But if I drive slower, I might be able to look outside a little, or enjoy the view a little bit more. So I say the speed we're going through life is probably an indicator of how much joy and value we experience, you know?
I tend to notice a lot more than most people do. Just I don't know how it happens, but I'm very observant. I notice as a combat veteran, of course, that helps being observant. As
Hmm.
a ex-police officer, makes me observant, and being a counselor, observing people,
Yeah.
how they react and how they're acting and what's going on with them. Yeah, so I notice a lot's going on in me, and I have slowed down a lot more than I did when I was in my 20s and 30s. And I just stop and smell the roses now a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it has probably something to do with age, right? When we're younger, we're like more fuller of energy, and we're
Hmm.
driven and want to experience things. And yeah.
Yeah. I'm getting to be up to be an old man here pretty soon. I'm gonna ask that question in the end, but the one I'm curious about now is why you say that pain and suffering is the greatest of teachers.
So just to recap, pain and suffering is one of the greatest teachers. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So because I feel it helps us in that sense that usually when we're comfortable, right? When everything is okay, we're just like cruising and everything is fine or semi-fine, then um, there's probably not a big incentive to change, you know,
No,
even though we would benefit from that. I'm not saying we have to change by any means, but like oftentimes my relationship is kind of not so good, but it's still kind of okay enough, you know, we're cruising. And I feel like pain and suffering in that sense is helping me to realize something is off here. And in a way where I don't see any other way than to change. You know, I need to change because I just cannot go further anymore or any longer with this. This is just too painful, you know, in that sense that it helps us to change in a way that is benefiting. And as I'm aware, it is sometimes perceived as a masochistic or kind of like a self-hurting is the benefit, but it's not. It's just the transformer, you know, the one thing that gets us out of our comfort zone, that helps us to transcend how we have lived our lives and to become a more loving person, you know, and to see that everybody's suffering, everybody's in pain. Like not everybody, but just like, let's say 95% of the people are usually struggling with something, right?
yeah, we all have bugs.
Yeah.
At least I think we do. In my time as a counselor and being a human being, just watching people, you can tell, you know, that I used to say it in my groups that not quite the way you do, but now I understand. Now I get it. Understand what you're getting at there, because I just to get out of your comfort zone, push yourself beyond your limits to the best of your ability to help you to change, become a better person, not use the chemicals that you're using now. That's what I should tell in my groups, which is kind of like what you're saying, in my opinion, is that the necessity of change. What changes everything, changes all the time. Everything
Yeah.
changes eventually.
Yeah.
So I agree with you on that 100% because it is true, in my opinion, anyway, that without the pain, you will know no joy.
Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah. Also, absolutely. You know, and when you just spoke, I felt like one of the four precepts of the Buddha is pain is we experience pain because we cling to or kind of like hold on to things, right?
Hmm.
And change is one of it's the only constant in life. Everything is changing constantly, and if we're not able to accept that, we are in pain because we want things to stay the same. We want to be like the relationship should be the same, my income or job should be the same. I should be kind of like, if I have a status quo that I'm happy with, it should stay the same. And if it's not, and it is probably not, then I'm suffering. And so I feel like there's that inherent truth in that if we open up to that there is pain, but we will also come to an understanding that life has changed and we can still be happy even though things are changing, people are dying,
Yeah,
friends are going, you know.
totally. I think that's a good way to look at it myself. I find two questions out here really important to me anyway, and I'm curious about them. Is one, what person would you meet, dead or alive? Which one would you want to meet?
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting question.
Yeah, I wish I would be able to, every time I get this question asked, I would be able to meet another person, you know, because there's so many great influential
Yeah.
people. And somebody mentioned Rumi the other day when I talked to them, and that is I don't know if you know Rumi. He's a Sufi poet, and
No.
from it's doesn't matter. But one of the people I really would love to meet is probably Wayne Dyer. He passed 2012, I think, or 13. Such an influential person, and he passed away before I started on my spiritual journey. You know, so I
Mhm.
didn't even know he existed. And that is something that I feel he's such a great influence and an inspiring person. I enjoy listening to his audiobooks and lectures, PBS specials, and so that would have been a really enjoyable conversation, I guess.
I bet you could, because I've read a couple of Dr. Dyer's books.
Uh-huh.
Quite intriguing. I
Yeah.
didn't end up following your path, but I read them years and years ago, and I'm having trouble remembering them now. My memory's going bad on me. But the other question that I really find intriguing is, if you could travel back in time, when would you go? Where would you go? Which and when?
Yeah. So which when?
Yeah.
Yeah. I th you know, it is the question that is pointing, at least for me, is that it is pointing at is it something that I regret that I would like to change, or is it something that I enjoyed that I would like to repeat or re-enjoy again? And to me, I was in the fortunate position of hosting a 5-day festival some years ago with a collective of people from the Cologne area in Germany. And so the whole festival, the whole experience was so enjoyable, but the festival itself was the most beautiful experience I had. And I was so elevated and so happy that it was new to me. It was a new experience, to be so much enjoying myself and others for such a long time. Before that, it had usually been only a short high, if I can say that, of joy, and then it's back to maybe feeling bad or feeling nothing. But there it was just such an elevated time that it feels I would love to experience that again, you know?
Who are your role models?
Can you say that again? Role models?
Yeah, who are your role models?
Hmm. I think that people, and this is like it is twofold. On in one way, it is the spiritual teachers that I follow, one Wayne Dyer being one of them that I mentioned, kind of like these people who are just an incarnation of loving awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they are meeting life completely as it is, and are so present that this is something that is being a role model for me. But on the other hand, it is all the people, because it is related to fame for me, in that sense that the spiritual teachers that I follow have become somewhat famous because they reached a level of recognition through their books, through their actions. But on
Mm-hmm.
the other hand, it is those people who just do good and they are not recognized by the general public, you know,
Yeah.
like as a big figure, but who just do so much good, and they will most of them will never be recognized by any newspaper or TV channel or something. That is something that I find even more inspiring, because I still have that inner need for recognition. I want to be someone who's recognized for being good, right? But these people are just good and they don't need anything back. They do service, they help whatever they do, and they make the
Mm-hmm.
lives better for people who are just like in need of that. So that's something that I really think is very inspirational.
Yeah, I think that's a very enlightened way to look at things. I personally, I still, like you, the need to be recognized. I keep thinking, well, one of these podcasts is going to go viral or some such nonsense, or they're going to start paying me for it, which would be a real blessing. They help me to
Yeah.
get interested in this thing. But I believe that I serve because I serve.
Mm-hmm.
I do things because it's the right thing to do. It has nothing to do with right or wrong. It's just the right thing to do at the time.
Yeah.
And an example is, I was at my son's graduation, and I'm divorced from college. And sitting behind me was my ex-wife, her new husband, and a children, and her new husband and their daughter. And I they asked the audience to stand up, on the parents to stand up. And I turned around, just glanced behind me, and my ex-wife's husband wasn't standing up because I had. And I motioned for him to stand up. You're a part of this. You belong here. You belong with the recognition. And that was just the right thing to do at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Another time it may not have been, but at that time it was.
Mm-hmm.
There's been many instances over the lifetime that I've done things like so I think I serve because I serve, but I also have that internal thing that says I want recognition for what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's just a part of that experience, right? That sometimes we do things selflessly and sometimes we do it because we want something, you know? And
Yeah,
I think that's the human experience in itself. And to fight that is just fighting the I don't know, fighting windmills, you know? You can't, it's part of life, you know? It's okay to accept it. And like you said, just doing it because it feels, at least to me, it feels nice, you know, being of service to help somebody who's in need right now. Maybe it's to buy a donation, giving them some money. Maybe it's to I love, and that's just a side story. I love taking hitchhikers with me because every time I hitchhike, I stand there at the side of the road and nobody picks me up. So I know how it sucks. To me,
yeah,
it sucks. And so I see it as just like something that's really nice because it is a service to them. They want to go from point A to point B, and I am on that way, and I can take them with me, and we can have a conversation. I can learn something. I can just like, you know, so it feels nice
yeah.
most of the time.
I sometimes I feel, that I feel good about doing what I did, and then there's other times like with that example with my ex-wife and her new husband. I didn't feel anything except it's the right thing to do. That's all I felt. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel bad. I didn't
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that I had done something spectacular when I hadn't done anything at all except
Yeah.
tell Joe to stand up. So that was it.
Yeah.
So and I think that's happens a lot to a lot of people. The old saying is you got worker bees and drones. You got people who in any organization you got is 80% of the work's done by 20% of the people.
Mm-hmm.
You got your worker bees, and that's the 20%. You got your drones, who's the 80% that don't do
Mm-hmm.
anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally believe I'm a worker bee. I do a lot just because it feels good sometimes, and sometimes it's just the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think you're pretty much the same way, Martin, that you also do things just because it's the right thing to do without expecting anything in return or getting anything in return. It doesn't mean anything to me. What
Yeah.
means to me is the right thing to do.
Yeah. And just maybe on the flip side, I experienced sometimes when I felt it was the right thing to do and I didn't do it because I was just like mad or resisting and I didn't want to do it, and it felt shitty, you know? It felt really shitty to not do it. Like there was an old lady in a tram in somewhere in Germany, I don't know, and she obviously needed help, you know, getting out of the tram, or she fell. I can't remember, but I didn't do it enough. Felt like shit after that. And so
Yeah,
in the contrast to that, when in those times when I decided to do it, it just felt nice, you know, helping somebody. And so it's just like it's an egoistic kind of motivation. I'm doing it because it feels better, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I feel I get that too sometimes. That I didn't. There's been a couple of times over my life that I can remember, and I know there's been more that I didn't do what I knew needed to be done.
Yeah.
Really bad about it,
Yeah.
or I'd done something that actually hurt somebody, and then I really feel bad because we're all
Yes.
capable of doing things like that. Although I make an effort not to, it still happens sometimes. But I got one more question for you, Martin, and then we'll continue the conversation. And this is the one I've been holding back on because I wanted it near the end because I think it's so important for people to know this one. How do I find purpose and meaning if I don't know how to start or where to look?
That's a good question.
Sure,
Um, I would say I find it with the intention, you know? If I'm looking for purpose and meaning in my life because I don't know what I want to do, I feel lost. I would say it starts with the intention of finding my purpose. It might be a maze, like a maze in terms of one like going into blind alleys and having to revert back and going up and down and forth. The intention will start the journey, and that will make the difference.
And then you'll find ways to get the information you need.
Yeah, because it's at least when I look back at my life and how I felt lost and how I found my purpose, it was and that probably resonates with many people. In the beginning, we only know what we don't want, we
Mhm.
know what's not working, we know what is not my purpose, and through that process, somehow we connect more and more with what it is we want to do, we feel called to do. So but it can't be there, you can't cut corners with that. It's just like it is a journey, and to be open to that journey and to start, and then we'll fall. Like I fell a lot, I fell down, and I didn't want to get up again. I felt just like, no, this time I'm just staying, I'm staying on the
Mhm.
ground. I only fall again, I'll just spare myself that. But in the end, I got up and I fell again, and kept on walking. And then at some point,
Uh,
at some point, the road gets easier. It gets lighter.
yeah, there's been a time or two I've met the road on my way down. Smack my face, figuratively speaking, because you know, no one is absolutely perfect, and we all make our mistakes. And you're right. You've got to get, it's like the old saying about the horseback rider. You got to get back on the horse and ride him again, because that's how we learn. And that goes back to your pain and suffering, or not suffering, but pain and what was it? My memory is so bad.
That's okay. I think it's pain and suffering.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
is the greatest teacher.
Yeah, and it is about perseverance, right? I
Yeah.
just I just finished a book from a great teacher. Joseph Marshall is his name. He's a Native American, and the book's called "Keep Going." Just it
Mhm.
is it is about that we keep if we keep going, that it will get easier. And nobody feels well when they're in the like in the pit or down in the hole or something. I think nobody enjoys that. It's just about knowing and understanding this will end, this will pass. I just have to keep on going, and it will get better
This will
again.
change. This too shall change, and that's a big
Yeah,
thing in AA. Is this too shall change,
yeah,
and I agree with that. And because it does, we do have to keep going. We have to get up, dust ourselves off, and say, "Okay, turn around, look at what we did, and don't do it again." That's where the learning comes in. If you don't do it again, you do it over
yeah,
and over and over. You need to look at that behavior and see what you're going to do about it. Because you want to continue in the pain, or do you want to get out of it?
yeah,
And I've known many people in my groups that wanted to stay in the pain, and then they was like pulling hen's teeth to get him to open up and talk about it and stuff. Whether or not they made any change after they left group, I have no idea what happened to them.
hmm,
But I know in group they talked about making changes. Now, whether or not they did, I don't know. I just know I did the best I could do.
yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we can circle back to probably to what the beginning of the conversation when you asked about Christianity and shamanism. I don't know if,
Mhm.
if if that makes any sense, but that when we look at life, we have two choices. We can walk away from God. We can decide to walk away from God, or we can walk towards and
Mhm.
embrace it, right? And that is to me the only real two choices we have. We can strengthen the ego, we can distance ourselves and separate ourselves from existence and our life, and we can walk toward it and embrace it, and that's inevitably making all the difference between happiness and pain and sadness.
Exactly. And I consider myself to be a happy person today. That's because I've managed to walk through all the pain and suffering and trauma and all that stuff I had from growing up through my up to today. Even there's still trauma in my life occasionally. Not happen very often, but it does happen. But
Yeah.
anyway, we're about out of time here, and I wanted to know if you have any final say anything. Oh, I was going to ask you one question before. Richard Warren, he wrote the Purpose-Driven book. Did you read that?
Can you say that again?
Purpose-Driven Life. And I think his first name is Richard. I know his last name is Warren. He's a pastor down in L.A.
I don't know. I don't think I know that.
Okay, it's an interesting read. Not as good as Dr. Dial, but it's an interesting read.
Yeah, put it in the show notes.
Okay, I will. I'll put it in the show notes, and you can have a look at it. His name is, I believe, but it's a Purpose-Driven Life, and he's written a couple of them on that. And he comes at it from a Christianity side because he is a preacher, but pretty good book in my opinion. I'll put it in my show notes. Anyway, we gotta go because I'm out of time. And I'm going to shut off. Where is it? There it is, right there. And we'll still be here. I'm just going to shut off the recording now.